Ladies and gentlemen, family, friends, leaders, and visionaries, there are moments in life when the intensity of opposition increases, not because you are losing, but because you are dangerously close to victory. The enemy doesn't waste energy on something that's not a threat. The attacks you've been facing lately are not a sign of failure. They are evidence of movement. Hell doesn't panic over the past. It only fights what threatens its future. The enemy knows you're about to win. You see, storms don't come to empty your life. They come to expose your foundation. They come when you are on the verge of manifestation. You are not under attack because of where you are. You are under attack because of where you're headed. There is a battle that always precedes breakthrough, a struggle that always precedes strategy, and a crisis that always reveals calling. The enemy is not attacking your now. He is attacking your next. And you must remember, the greatest threat to darkness is not the chaos you survived, but the clarity you discovered. The enemy saw what you didn't see. You were rising, you were awakening, you were shifting. You were aligning, you were about to break a cycle. You were about to step into purpose. You were about to do what generations before you could only dream about. And now resistance has come, not as a sign to quit, but as confirmation that you're too close to destiny to turn back. Let me declare this to you with clarity. You are not losing. You are transitioning, and the enemy knows. The weight you feel right now, the pressure surrounding your life, the tension in your soul, it is not random. It is not a sign that something has gone wrong. It is not an indicator of failure. That resistance you're encountering, that sudden opposition, that unexplainable warfare, it's a divine signal. You are closer to the finish line than you think. You must understand that resistance always increases near completion. It always tightens its grip when you are steps away from your breakthrough. That is not a myth. That is a spiritual law. A woman feels the most pain not in the early stages of pregnancy, but in labor. Labor pains are not an announcement of death. They are the body's confirmation that delivery is imminent. In the same way, the opposition in your life is not evidence that you're failing. It is proof that something is trying to be born through you. You are not falling apart. You are about to break through. Have you noticed how things seem to go wrong just when everything is beginning to align? Have you ever felt like just when clarity comes, chaos erupts? That is not coincidence. That is confirmation. The resistance that surrounds you is not aimed at what you've lost. It's aimed at what you are about to gain. The enemy doesn't fear where you are. He fears where you're going. He doesn't tremble over your past. He panics over your potential. The closer you get to completion, the more intense the resistance becomes. The finish line always demands the most from a runner. It is not the beginning of the race that determines your endurance. It's the final stretch. Athletes will tell you that the last lap is always the hardest. That's when the body is exhausted, the lungs are burning, the legs are heavy. But that's also when the crowd gets louder, the goal comes into view, and the glory gets real. Spiritually, emotionally, and mentally, this is what many people experience when they are on the verge of a new dimension. The warfare intensifies. The temptations multiply. The distractions come in waves. Not because they are failing, but because they are about to step into something they prayed for. The enemy doesn't mind you starting. Starting doesn't scare him. Anybody can start. Anybody can get excited about vision. Anybody can talk purpose and destiny when it's fresh. But what shakes the gates of hell is consistency. What disturbs the darkness is persistence. What makes the enemy nervous is that you didn't quit when it got hard. You didn't abandon your post when the pressure increased. And now, because you kept moving forward, because you kept pressing, because you refused to let go, resistance has increased to match your momentum. Resistance is a compliment. It's a spiritual acknowledgement that you are dangerous now. You are aware now. You are becoming who you were born to be, and everything that is trying to stand in your way knows it. So don't be deceived by the difficulty. The adversity you are facing is not a wall. It's a mirror. It's reflecting just how powerful your next step really is. There is something powerful about those who understand the signs of transition. They are not thrown off by turbulence. They know that turbulence doesn't mean the plane is crashing. It means it's passing through a layer of pressure on the way to a higher altitude. The plane is not falling apart. It's flying higher, and so are you. That's why, right now, you cannot afford to stop. You cannot afford to doubt what you saw in the spirit just because you feel resistance in the natural. The pressure is not a prophecy of failure. It's a confirmation of acceleration. The presence of resistance means something is shifting. Something is opening. Something is changing. And if you stop now, you will never see what all of this pressure was preparing you for. The final stretch is where winners are made. The finish line is where champions are born. But it's also the place where many turn around because they mistake warfare for warning. Do not misinterpret the moment. Don't confuse spiritual tension with divine rejection. You are not being denied. You are being refined. You are not being punished. You are being promoted. And everything that's pushing against you is really preparing you to push harder. Keep your posture. Keep your pace. Keep your focus. This resistance isn't meant to destroy you. It's designed to develop you. It's giving you the muscles for the mantle. It's giving you the stamina for the assignment. It's giving you the fire for the future. There is something the enemy knows about you that you have not fully accepted about yourself. You are significant, and significance always attracts resistance. The size of your warfare is often a direct reflection of the weight of your calling. You are not being opposed because you're weak. You're being opposed because you're dangerous. You're being fought not because of your mistakes, but because of your mandate. Hell doesn't war against the ordinary. It rises up to resist the extraordinary. The more meaningful your purpose, the more intense your pressure. This is a principle many never discern, and so they misread the battles of their lives. They assume the enemy fights them because they're flawed, or because they've failed. But in truth, the enemy isn't chasing what's behind you. He's trying to prevent what's ahead of you. He is threatened by your next move. That's why things started falling apart the moment you got serious. That's why the attacks started increasing when you finally decided to obey. That's why the distractions multiplied when you began to focus. It's not a coincidence. It's confirmation. You were created with significance embedded in your spirit. Before you were formed in your mother's womb, heaven had already spoken over you. Destiny was already designed for you. Blueprints were written with your name on them, and even if you don't feel it, even if you haven't fully stepped into it, the enemy recognizes what you carry. He recognizes the anointing before you walk in it. He identifies purpose before you understand it, and that's why he launches opposition early. Get you to question your value before you ever step into your vision. Some of you have wondered why you've been under pressure since you were a child, why you've always felt like a target, why life seemed unfair, heavy, or more complicated for you than for others. It's not because you were cursed, it's because you were called. The more weight a building is designed to carry, the deeper the foundation must be dug. The more power a person is destined to hold, the more process they must endure. Your life has always been significant. The attacks have always been intense, and now you're beginning to understand. It wasn't because you were cursed, it was because you were chosen. Significance doesn't just attract favor, it attracts fire. It doesn't just bring blessings, it brings battles. And if you've been facing unusual warfare, that may be your greatest clue that you are carrying an unusual assignment. There are things in you that threaten systems. There are ideas in you that disturb mediocrity. There is favor on your life that frustrates the enemy. So don't expect the fight to disappear when you start doing the right thing. Sometimes the warfare increases precisely because you've made the right decision. Too often, people mistake opposition for misdirection. They assume resistance means wrong turn. But resistance isn't always a sign you're off track. Sometimes it's the clearest evidence that you're right where you're supposed to be. The enemy fights significance before it's seen. He sends storms not when you're at the mountaintop, but when you're climbing toward it. Why? Because the enemy knows if you ever see yourself correctly, you'll start living like the weapon you were born to be. He knows if you ever embrace the truth about your identity, you'll walk in authority. You'll set captives free. You'll break generational chains. You'll bring light into dark places. And so he fights, not because you're finished, but because you've begun. This is why you cannot afford to base your identity on how life feels. You cannot allow opposition to convince you that you are insignificant. Feelings are not facts. Warfare is not a verdict, and the presence of difficulty is not the absence of destiny. You have to learn to see resistance as revelation. You matter more than you know. That's why the battle is personal. That's why the enemy is relentless. That's why you've had to fight to keep your mind, to keep your peace, to keep your joy, because your presence threatens principalities. You've been carrying questions like, why me? But the real question is, why not me? Why wouldn't the enemy attack someone like you, someone with potential, someone with purpose, someone with a voice, someone with a legacy? Why wouldn't he try to silence you before you start speaking life into others? Why wouldn't he try to distract you before you launch what will deliver others? Your pain is not punishment. It's an announcement. Heaven knows who you are. Hell knows too. The only person left to believe it is you. The significance of your life is not tied to your bank account, your background, or your current circumstances. It's tied to your assignment. It's tied to what was written about you before time began. That's why this moment matters. That's why the pressure is real. That's why the opposition has increased. It's not a sign that you're losing. It's a sign that you are carrying something that matters. And the enemy knows it. Before anything great is birthed, there will always be a battle. That is not superstition. That is a pattern woven into the fabric of life itself. You will never step into a divine promise without facing some kind of resistance. You will never carry something powerful without the weight of warfare. Pain is not a detour from purpose. It is often the doorway into it. The fight you're in right now is not without meaning. It's not random. It's not empty. It's labor, and labor always precedes delivery. Every purpose comes with a process, and every process has a price. You cannot step into destiny without passing through difficulty. The birthing of something new will always cost you the comfort of the old. And the battle that comes before birth is not designed to destroy you. It's designed to prepare you. The contractions of your life, the tension in your soul, the pressing in your spirit, they are not punishment. They are preparation. They are heaven's signal that something is about to be pushed through you, something that couldn't come in any other season but now. When a woman is pregnant, no one can see what's forming in her womb in the early weeks. But just because it isn't visible doesn't mean it isn't alive. Just because it isn't public doesn't mean it isn't real. And that's how purpose works. You can carry something that's kicking inside you, stirring up your nights, shifting your appetite, changing your pace. And no one else can see it. But deep down, you know something is growing. Something is forming. And when that something gets close to being born, that's when the pain shows up. That's when the contractions start. That's when the pressure increases. Not because you're dying, but because what's in you is finally ready to come forth, and this is where the battle begins, not just around you, but within you, a battle in your thoughts, a battle in your emotions. A battle between what you know and what you feel, between the promise and the process, between what God said and what your circumstances look like. It's the tension of transition, the in-between space where you can't go back, but you haven't yet stepped into what's next. And in that place, the enemy whispers that you're failing, that you're going in circles, that the pain means God has left you. But no, this is not death. It's labor. It's not a curse. It's the cost of carrying something worth birthing. Battles are always louder before breakthroughs. Darkness is always thicker before dawn. And when God is about to release something through you, an idea, a ministry, a business, a healing, a calling, you will feel the war intensify. Why? Because every birth disrupts the status quo. Every new thing threatens old systems. Every fresh move of God shakes stagnant places. And the enemy will do whatever he can to make you abort what you carry before it sees the light of day. He will try to convince you that the pressure is too much, that the pain means you took the wrong path, that the contractions are a signal to quit. But the truth is, when pain shows up, it means purpose is near. You are closer than you think. Every great story in Scripture carries this pattern. Before the children of Israel entered the Promised Land, they faced Jericho. Before David wore a crown, he faced Goliath. Before Jesus rose, he carried the cross. There is no glory without groaning, no resurrection without crucifixion, no arrival without adversity. You cannot escape the battle if you want to carry the blessing. The enemy does not fight empty vessels. He wars against those who carry something that has the power to change the earth. And so you have to make a decision. Will you give up in the middle of the pain, or will you push? Will you shrink back at the sight of resistance, or will you rise with the strength of conviction? Because what you are carrying is not just for you. It's for nations, it's for your children, it's for people you haven't even met yet. And the battle you're facing is not the end, it's the threshold. It's the place between what was and what will be. And if you can push through this, you'll see what the pain was pointing to all along. The enemy wants you to focus on the agony, so you forget the assignment. He wants you to feel abandoned, so you disconnect from the promise. But the fact that you are still standing, still pressing, still believing, despite the pain, means you're not done. You are mid-labor. You are in motion. You are on the verge of seeing with your eyes what you've been carrying in your spirit. Battles always precede birthings, and pain is the language of transition. So don't run from it. Don't curse it. Let it guide you. Let it shape you. Let it remind you that you are not empty. You are full of something divine, and it's about to come forth, and the enemy knows it. Your past doesn't speak as loudly as it used to. The shame that once defined you has begun to lose its voice. The failures that used to follow you around like shadows are now fading. Why? Because your future is starting to speak. And the sound of who you are becoming is drowning out the echo of who you used to be. That's why things feel tense. That's why the battle has shifted. Because something in you has shifted. You've started listening to a new voice, the voice of the future. The voice of destiny, the voice of identity, and the moment your ears opened to it, everything around you began to react. The enemy doesn't mind if you live in the past. He doesn't even mind if you occasionally dream, as long as you keep returning to what's familiar. But the moment you start believing that your life is not defined by what happened to you, but by what was destined for you, that's when the war begins. The moment you stop rehearsing the old story and start reaching for the new script, resistance shows up. Why? Because the future has weight. The future has volume. The future has authority. And when you finally begin to agree with what heaven already declared over your life, your past loses its power. This is why the warfare you face is not just external. It's internal. The greatest struggle isn't always against what's happening around you. It's against what's still trying to live inside you. Old fears, old insecurities, old identities, old wounds. They try to whisper, "This is who you are." But your future is shouting louder, "This is who you were never meant to stay." And the louder your future becomes, the more those lies start shaking, the more your old limitations start falling apart. You see, your future isn't something far off. It's not years away. It's not waiting for you at some distant landmark. It's in motion right now, pulling you, calling you, drawing you. But here's the tension. Your past is familiar. It's comfortable even when it's broken. You know how to survive it. You've built habits around it. You've told stories out of it. And because of that, many people get stuck not because they're not called, but because they're more committed to history than they are to destiny. They've learned how to function in dysfunction. They've learned how to explain pain so well that healing feels foreign. And so when the future starts speaking, when God starts whispering that more is possible, they hesitate. They resist because stepping into the future means letting go of the version of you that could only survive. But you weren't born just to survive. You were born to transform, to transcend, to become. You were born to step into something that makes your past irrelevant, not because it didn't happen, but because it no longer defines you. When your future starts speaking, it doesn't erase your past. It just puts it in proper perspective. It turns wounds into wisdom. It turns scars into stories. It turns losses into lessons. And suddenly you realize, your past was never meant to be a prison. It was meant to be preparation. This is what the enemy fears. Not just that you'll dream, but that you'll decide. That you'll decide you're not who you used to be. That you'll decide the cycles end with you. That you'll decide your future is not a maybe. It's a mandate. When you begin to live like your future is already speaking, everything begins to align. Heaven starts opening doors. Favor begins to flow. Strategy starts rising in your spirit, because God responds to movement. And the moment you stop bowing to your history and start leaning into your destiny, the enemy loses his leverage. And yes, he will still try to bring up your past. He'll try to remind you of what you did, of who you were, of where you came from. But now you know better. You know that your past is not your prophecy. You know that your future is not built on who you were. It's built on who you were always meant to be. And you have outgrown the version of you that was built in survival. Now you're building in purpose. You're walking in clarity. You're thinking with vision. And that's why things around you are shaking. Not because you're falling apart, but because you're evolving. Your future is speaking louder. And you are starting to believe it. You're starting to walk like it, talk like it, pray like it, build like it. You've stopped auditioning for spaces that were beneath you. You've stopped explaining your growth to people who only knew your struggle. You've stopped asking permission to become, because now you know. You were never created to live in the shadows of your past. You were created to cast a light that shapes the future. You've outgrown guilt. You've outgrown fear. You've outgrown the shame that tried to shackle you. The future is louder now, and its sound is full of purpose. Its rhythm is faith. Its melody is hope. Its voice is truth, and the enemy knows it. The presence of a storm is not proof that you are in the wrong place. It might be the clearest indication that you are in the right one. Storms are not always a sign of judgment. Sometimes they are the sound of transition. Sometimes the chaos in your life is not because you are losing your way, but because you are walking directly into the fulfillment of something divine. You are closer than you've ever been, And that is why the winds are howling. That is why the waves are crashing. That is why everything you thought was stable is shaking. The storm is not your end, it's your evidence. When you walk by faith, you don't read life by appearances. You read it by revelation. And revelation tells you that storms come before arrival. They come before manifestation. They come before the breakthrough breaks open, and the enemy knows this. He doesn't just send storms to stop you. He sends storms to confuse you. Because if he can make you believe that the turbulence means you're off course, he can get you to abandon the journey just before you reach the destination. But hear this. The storm is not a sentence. It is not a punishment for stepping out. It is a signal that you did. You moved. You obeyed. You trusted. And that movement stirred the atmosphere. That movement disrupted the patterns of hell. That movement triggered the element. Because the moment you shift from comfort to calling, creation begins to respond. The resistance you're feeling isn't always demonic, it's prophetic. It's a sign that something is unlocking. Something is being born through your obedience. And so, the shaking begins. Think about it. Jesus told his disciples to cross to the other side. They obeyed. They followed his word. And yet, in the middle of their obedience, a storm hit the boat. Not because they disobeyed, not because they were rebellious, but because they were on the way to destiny. That storm didn't come to sink them. It came to test what was in them, and that's where many of us get stuck. We mistake resistance for rejection. We interpret delay as denial. We assume the storm means we heard God wrong. But you didn't hear wrong. You heard clearly. The storm is not his silence. It's often his signal. You prayed for increase, and the storm came. You asked for clarity, and confusion tried to rise. You declared you were ready to step into purpose, and suddenly the winds started howling. That's not failure. That's birth. That's not a curse. That's confirmation. You are in transition. You are leaving one season, crossing through tension, and entering another. And the storm is trying to make you turn around. But you can't. You've come too far. The other side isn't just a hope anymore, it's a promise. And what God promises, he protects. You may feel overwhelmed, but you are not alone. The storm does not cancel the word, it confirms it. It reminds you that the enemy has seen the route you're taking, and he's nervous. He knows you're going to arrive. He knows something is waiting for you on the other side that will change everything. A new level of authority, a new dimension of influence, a new capacity for joy, and so he fights. Not to win because he can't, but to wear you down. He wants the journey to feel so painful, so disorienting, so exhausting, that you give up midstream, that you doubt what you heard, that you lose heart in the wind. But storms are also where you discover your voice. Storms are where faith becomes real. Storms are where you stop relying on the surface and start standing on the word. Because when everything is shaking around you, the only thing left to trust is what God spoke to you. That's why the storm didn't kill you. That's why the attack didn't work. That's why the boat may have taken on water, but it never sank. Because you were never sailing by sight. You were sailing by word. And the word cannot return void. Some of you are in that storm right now, and you've been asking, God, why is this happening now? I thought I was doing the right thing. You are. That's why the shaking is so fierce. Because you are on schedule, and the storm is trying to distract you from that truth. Don't fall for it. Don't interpret the resistance as a sign to quit. You are not being sentenced. You are being shaped. You are not being cursed. You are being carved. And on the other side of this, you will not only survive. You will emerge with power you didn't know you had. This storm will pass, but you will not be the same. You'll be stronger, wiser, more focused, more dangerous to hell than ever before. And that's why the enemy fought you in the first place, because the storm wasn't sent to stop you. It was stirred up to scare you. But if you've come this far through the wind, the waves, and the night, It means you've already won more than you think. You're still here, you're still moving, you're still believing, and that means the other side is closer than it's ever been. And the enemy knows it. There's a reason the pressure is getting heavier. There's a reason the voices of doubt have gotten louder. There's a reason you've felt like quitting more now than ever before. It's not because you're far from breakthrough. It's because you're dangerously close. You're near the finish line. You're nearing completion. And the enemy has discerned what you're carrying, what you're birthing, what you're becoming. The closer you get to stepping into it, the more intense the warfare becomes. This is not the season to be confused by the chaos. It's the season to read it correctly, because the level of attack is a prophetic clue. You are almost there. The enemy never unleashes this kind of pressure at the beginning of a journey. He doesn't waste resources when your movement is still in seed form. He waits. He watches. And when he sees that your roots have gone deep, when he sees that your faith has grown stronger, when he sees that you're almost at the point of manifestation, that's when he throws everything he has at you. It's not because you're weak. It's because he knows he's running out of time. You are too close to be stopped by ordinary distractions, so he sends extraordinary resistance. Have you noticed how spiritual fatigue often comes right after seasons of clarity? How discouragement hits hardest right after revelation? That's not accidental. That's targeted. Because when you begin to align with purpose, when your thoughts begin to agree with heaven, when your hands begin to build what God showed you, that's when all of hell starts trembling. You become a threat, not because of where you've been, but because of where you're headed. And the enemy doesn't fight based on your past. He fights based on your potential. He fights because of what you're about to do next. This is why the temptation to give up is strongest just before you break through. It's why the doubts seem more believable, why the spiritual heaviness feels suffocating, why the people closest to you start acting like enemies, and why your own thoughts begin to betray you. It's not because you've missed God, it's because you've obeyed Him, and obedience puts you in alignment, and alignment triggers acceleration, and acceleration stirs warfare. But here's the truth you must hold on to in moments like these. Warfare does not cancel the promise. It confirms it. You see, when a runner is approaching the finish line, their body screams to stop, not because they're failing, but because they're emptying themselves out. They are pouring out the last reserve of strength, the final ounce of endurance. And just like that runner, when you are nearing the end of one season and about to enter the next, you feel that same strain in your spirit. It feels like you can't take another step, like one more day would break you. But what you don't realize is that heaven is cheering, angels are watching, destiny is leaning in, you are about to cross over, you are closer than you know, and that's when the enemy starts planting seeds of deception. He tells you the warfare is proof you took a wrong turn, that the closed doors mean you're not favored, that the delays mean God has forgotten you, but it's a lie, a strategic lie, because you are not lost. You are being led. You are not abandoned. You are being advanced. You are not stuck. You are being strengthened. And the spiritual warfare you are facing is heaven's way of telling you, don't stop now. Don't turn around. Don't give in to the fatigue. Rest if you must, but don't retreat. You are at the edge of something eternal. It's right before the door opens that the pressure to walk away peaks. It's right before the wall falls that the marching feels pointless. It's right before the grave breaks open that Saturday feels like silence. But if you can hold the line, if you can stay the course, you will see what all of hell was trying to keep from you, your calling. Your impact, your assignment, your answered prayer. The enemy knows he cannot stop what God has ordained, so he tries to stop you from showing up, from pushing one more time, from walking in even when everything says turn around. But here's what he never expected, that you would be this resilient, that you would keep moving even while crying, that you would keep building even while bleeding, that you would keep trusting even when you couldn't trace God's hand, that you would believe the word over the warfare, that you would learn how to war in worship, that you would speak life while walking through fire, that you would stay in position long enough to see the promise manifest. You have endured too much to give up now. You have prayed too long. You have sown too deeply. You have changed too much to go back to who you were. The warfare is not a wall. It's a signpost. It's the last gate before glory. It's the final round before the crown. And if you can just push through this stretch, if you can just keep your eyes fixed, your heart steady, your faith alive, you'll see that what God spoke was never a fantasy. It was a future, and it's here now, and the enemy knows it. So now you understand. The battle was never about your past. It was never even about your present. It's always been about your future, about the threat you pose to darkness, about the change you carry, about the lives your obedience will unlock. The enemy has been studying you, tracking your patterns, whispering lies, stirring storms, not because you're weak, but because you're destined. And somewhere along the way, even if you forgot it, he didn't. He remembers the prophecy over your life. He remembers the prayers your grandmother prayed. He remembers the calling that tried to follow you through every valley, every trauma, every mistake. He remembers the dream you tried to bury, and when you finally started rising, when you finally began to believe again, to rebuild again, to walk by faith again, he panicked because he knows what's coming. He knows what happens when you stop living wounded and start living whole. He knows what's released when you finally see yourself the way heaven sees you. He knows that once you cross this threshold, you won't go back. So, fight with focus, walk with power, speak with fire, because every storm you've survived, every war you've endured, every delay you've pushed through, it's all been building toward this moment. You're not just close to break through. You're in it. You're not about to win. You're already winning. And the reason the enemy is so loud right now is because his time is short and your victory is near. This is your season. This is your hour. This is your crossing over. The enemy knows it, and now so do you.